So after a brief hiatus, some sunny South Carolina weather, man, it was nice. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
The wedding was great. Honeymoon was incredible. High 70s, low 80s the whole time. Sunny. Um, Everything but that brief meltdown I had after our first round draft choice. After that, everything seemed to go smoothly.
Yeah, I think the Bengals draft picks may have probably ruined your wedding night.
It was
The
no.
first
I'll
night.
tell you what. By
That
Saturday,
was
I
that
was
was that
okay.
was Jameson.
Listen, by Saturday, I was okay. I didn't drink a darn bit of Jameson. Um, I had some fun on Thursday night. I did not drink it all Friday. I did not have a drink until right before the wedding. Just like wanted to be present in the moment. Wasn't It was great, man. I wanted to make sure that my bride to be that first morning or last morning of her single life didn't have anything to worry about, man.
Yeah, that's what's
So
up.
I was minding my P's and Q's, as they say.
Hey, you know what, man? I'm happy for you. I'm happy to hear that. There's not often you get a chance to celebrate, weddings and engagements on sports talk shows and stuff like that. The national shows, maybe, because those are always like routine producing every single day. But here on Running Through the Jungle, we haven't really done that. So that's a first. So I'm really proud of you, man.
Hey, Mary Edwards, we want to tell you did not miss last week's show. I was on my honeymoon, and then the bad weather ran into Cincinnati, and Justin was out of power and down, and Tim didn't want to go on by himself and just bloviate. So we actually had a skip week. We had a vacation week. So
Yeah.
we're back at it today. What's that?
I almost went live by myself last Thursday, and then I was like, you know what? No, because we're gonna end up. Brandon's gonna come back. Justin's gonna get some power back. He's finally gonna pay his power bill, and then we're gonna talk about the same shit that I already covered last week. So I was like, nah, I'll just wait.
Yeah, I get what Justin was talking about with the weather. Weather ripped through here. It blew windows out of high rises downtown. I've never seen anything like it. Skyscrapers missing windows. Right around the corner from our house, uprooted a giant oak tree, threw it on someone's
It was crazy
car roof. Man, it was not to be trifled with. That's for sure. So I get it, man. We have people that are still without power from last Tuesday. They have updates on it every morning on the news. It's wild, but
it's crazy.
But yes, we are, Mary. We're going to go through the draft choices. We're going to recap what we think about the Bengals draft this year, and that's all we're going to do for this show. Because next week we're going to cover some more moves and signings. Taking a couple million from Geno Stone is Zach Moss. This is about the right amount of time we should spend on that.
I mean, don't forget about the schedule release. That's next week on the 14th.
Schedule release and the elephant in the room, I think, hopefully gets cleared up by next week. I want to we got to figure something out with Trey sooner or later. But this one, we're going to focus on the draft right after the intro. Welcome back to Running Through the Jungle. I am your host, Brandon Herriott, here with your host, Tim Lyons and Justin Lacey. What's going on, fellas?
What it do?
Yes, sir.
We apologize for missing you last week, but we did miss you. We did want to be on and go live. I just couldn't make it work. I apologize for that myself. But wherever you listen to us right now, please like, subscribe, hit that follow button, share, rate, review. tell a friend to tell a friend about us. We appreciate you guys as always for rocking with Running Through the Jungle. Let's get started. Like I documented it. I went live, threw it on the YouTube channel with Pay the Thursday, which was kind of a pseudo bachelor party for me. We did a little golfing in the morning, napped in the afternoon, and then a little draft party at night. Had a great time. Catered by Popeye's Chicken. It was fantastic. We were making Popeye's parfaits became a thing, and it was fantastic. But I was a little bit dumbfounded as I went live. I know Shamar Stewart has great measurables. Combine freak, athletic freak. I know, Phil Simms went on Bengals Talk and talked about how much he liked Shamar Stewart here and the upside he's got. 6'5", 267. Athletic score of 84. Combine ran a 4.59 40. 1.58 in the 10 and a 40-inch vertical jump with an almost 11-foot broad jump. So, no doubt, athletic freak. 1.5 sacks. The one thing that people have now put out there that I'm starting to give a little bit of a reprieve to, I'll say, is Golden played against him last year. He played against Texas A&M, so he got to see him up close and personal.
Yep.
So, you know what? I'm going to pump the brakes on how unhappy I was with the pick. I'm going to let it play out. Like I said with the pick, I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. These guys get paid a lot more money, obviously, to be player personnel and general managers and all those kind of things. So I hope they're right. Tim, I want to hear what your thoughts were on first round draft pick, number 17 overall, edge rusher Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but after however many days it's been since we drafted Shamar Stewart, I like him. I like the kid. He's got no off the field drama. I think he's got a positive sight on, his future with the Cincinnati Bengals and his career in the NFL. Whether if it's for the next 4 years or the next 12 years with the Cincinnati Bengals, he's a good kid. That was a plus. He's big. He's agile. He can disrupt plays. I watched a lot of film on him. I know everybody was crapping on him about he only had 1.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks for his college career, and all this stuff. Yeah, well, let's not forget it's still, college football, and he played for Texas A&M last year. He's a big dude. He's promising. I think he's got a higher ceiling than what a lot of Bengals fans are giving him credit for. You put him in a NFL pro style defense with a guy like Al Golden and who's the defensive line coach? I keep forgetting his damn name. Anyways,
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Jerry Montgomery.
Montgomery, yes, there it is. Thank you, Justin. I knew you remember. I'm getting old. I can't remember everything. But you put him on a defensive line, with Montgomery. I think it's going to be promising. I know he's, everybody is assuming that he is a project or, he's going to need work and all this other stuff. All college players are going to need work when they come into the NFL. It's a totally different ball game. It's a different defensive scheme. It's a different team, but I think he's promising. I think he has more of an upside than what we've seen from Miles Murphy for the last couple of years. But I'm going to give credit where credit is due. That's Lou's fault too, because he doesn't like to play his young guys. So, let's we have Al Golden now as our defensive coordinator. And I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. this is a new year, new defensive coordinator, new defensive line coach. This isn't going to be lose, 23 and 24 defense that we've seen in the last couple of years. There's a reason why he was exited stage left. So, but Shamar Stewart, I like him. I think there's a chance where he could be a disruptor. Could cause some run stopping ability too, redirecting plays from going from his side to over to Trey Hendrickson's side if Trey's still playing next year or this coming year. I think he's going to cause a little bit more havoc than what everybody's assuming. Luke Kuechly, I was watching a thing that he did with Kay Adams, and Luke Kuechly spoke highly of him. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to shit on the kid. I'm just not going to do it. He's a first-round draft pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, we didn't have very good luck with Miles Murphy. The last 2 years ago, whatever the hell it was. Sam Hubbard really wasn't a big factor with the Cincinnati Bengals defense. Let's not forget. I think he's an upgrade from Sam Hubbard. But, I just give it some time. Just take a shot of tequila and just take a deep breath.
Yeah, there has been more talk about how he was asked to do quite a few things at Texas A&M. That here he's basically going to play one position where he's playing, in several different positions there. Justin, your take on Shamar Stewart at 17?
All right, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that I was happy and glowing about the pick. I was not. I thought that Shamar Stewart, his production was really lackadaisical. Not saying that he wasn't a big freak athlete. He was. I obviously saw that pop on tape. And I was just wanting the Bengals to get somebody that was a little bit more solidified with the production category because they don't have time to wait for somebody to figure it out when they get into the pros. This defense is bad. They don't have any other answers at pass rush. I don't care about the one-year rental of Joseph Ossai and him coming on late against bad opponent, bad offenses. I'm not sold on that. I wanted somebody with a lot more production, which is why I hindered on the Mike Green selection. He didn't fall into the second round. We'll get into that at some point. Or Jahai Campbell. So somebody that could actually come in and single-handedly remake the defense. We already understood that the Bengals wasn't going to turn this defense around immediately with only 6 picks. I wasn't expecting that. But I needed somebody to at least feel good about production-wise that can be complementary to Trey Hendrickson and help elevate and evolve other pieces. So I wasn't really high on it. But here's the thing. I've since came around and understood why the Bengals did what they did. Because sacks are genuinely an overrated stat. They really are. Don't get me wrong. I love the 17.5 sacks that Trey Hendrickson produced last year. But if we're truly asking ourselves and injecting some truth serum into us, he is not Myles Garrett. He is not TJ Watt. He is not Max Crosby. Those guys can wreck a game plan like crazy. Trey Hendrickson, he's been a game wrecker at times, but he's been inconsistent when it comes to that. Shamar Stewart has shown that he can be very consistent with disruption, and that's the production. Chris Sims said it on the show several times where he said it on his show with Mike Florio, and he also said it on Bengals Talk with James Rapine. And now I think that ever since then I've kind of calmed down is that actually this is a guy that we actually need for real. He's a guy that can come in and wreck and mess the play up for the opposing offense, and Trey Hendrickson can just clean it up. And I think that the reverse effect may happen that way too, where you might see a little bit more increase in sack production now that we have them in the pros because people still double, triple team them. I can't unsee that Chargers game last year when Trey Hendrickson was being triple teamed and we still didn't get pressure. That was pissing me off. Well, you can't really do that when you get down the rabbit hole of next season with a guy like Shamar Stewart, who's going to show you that he can go across the best of the best when it comes to O-linemen. He's a big dude. I don't worry about his size matchup, skill set wise. I don't feel like that he's a guy that's going to get bullied. So I'm since came around on the pick, but I'm not going to sit there and act like that I was high on it just because I thought that the Bengals should have got a little bit more value. But I've understood now why they made that selection. And this is going to be Al Golden's first true test as a new defensive coordinator. We understood what he was as a linebackers coach, but now you got to oversee the whole umbrella of the defense. And now we get to see what he's like when it comes to somebody like this and how he can shape and mold this type of guy.
Yeah, his combine weigh-in was 267. He's probably playing at 275 or 280. Those guys all lean down a little bit for their 40 times. And to me, and I said this, when we were debating who we should draft, going in the mock drafts and stuff, he does fit who we have as a 4-3 edge as far as prototypical size and whatnot, where, the Mike Greens and the Jack Campbells did not. They were a little bit light in the arse, comparatively speaking, to what we normally have. And I do think I would love to say, so for me, if he's going to be capture some of his upside, capture some of his talent into production in the NFL, I think if he hits as a good pick, we're talking about somebody that has an upside of probably 80 tackles and 18 sacks a year, which in his prime, which is close to that Max Crosby kind of disruption you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to get to before you continue, because Qualifier asked a question to me, and I do want to answer this.
Yeah.
Based on the draft board of who was there at 17, who I would have liked to have taken. You had the whole board wide open. You had Malachi Starks, he was there. You had Mike Green, who was there. Jahai Campbell, who was there. I was also looking at the idea of trading back too, so that way you can collect a couple more picks, and you could probably still would have gotten a guy like Shamar Stewart to begin with. The Bengals could have tested that philosophy, maybe trade back with the Packers, even with the Lions, because Jahai Campbell was a guy that was still on the board at the time. And the Baltimore Ravens was able to get a steal in Malachi Starks when he fell to them, or Enike Nwari, who ended up going early in the second round. So I've obviously championed the guys like Mike Green and Malachi Starks and Jahai Campbell on the show previously when we did mock draft episodes and stuff like that. But you know what? I'm coming around on the idea of why they took a guy like Shamar Stewart now. You just wish that his sack production would have been higher, so that makes you feel good about it. But ultimately, I also think that Texas A&M was just a system where a lot of people really didn't really get a chance to shine. Don't forget, McKinley Jackson came there the year before.
Well, they had a ton of highly recruited high school players.
Yeah.
There, and they really just – you start wondering how much of that was coaching and everything when you have that many 5-star, 4-star recruits and your team just doesn't quite get there, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. I get what you're saying there. Listen, production-wise, I'll consider it a really good pick here. If this is a 10-sack, 60-tackle professional, maybe not his first year, but years 3 and 4, great pick.
Yeah.
First year, just show me some burst, right?
Yeah. You got to hit, bro.
Splash plays.
You got to hit. You got to get home. This pick that we don't have time to wait. At the end of the day, we ain't got time to wait.
That was the only thing that I was really upset about, was not having that production. We don't have the ability to wait. I totally agree with you. That's the one scary part of it. I'll call it scary. I'm not going to call it disappointing anymore. I've gotten over the disappointment. I get the guy's upside. I'm going to call it scary. It's a little risky for me. It's a little risky, but hey, no risk it, no biscuit, right? All right, Tim, round 2. The Bengals with the 49th overall pick take linebacker out of South Carolina, Demetrius Knight Jr. What was your thoughts about our own DK now?
Okay, so I was like confused as hell, to be honest with you, why we drafted a linebacker in the second round. I was like, well, what the hell are we doing here? We could have got, I think Ratledge was still on the board at that time. I was like, what the hell are we doing here? What is going on? And then I came back to reality. I watched some film on Knight, played for South Carolina. That dude, and I remember South Carolina last year. That defense was very stellar. Good. I don't care what anybody says.
Especially they might have not 7 for sure.
Yeah, that South Carolina defense was stellar, man. They were absolutely stellar. Then I watched some gameplay of Knight playing against Alabama. I think I played. There were some other games I watched too. He is quick. He is a great run defender. He's willing to make those splash plays. He's very good at reading the quarterback. If I remember correctly, he was a corner or quarterback one time in his career. So he was like, I know the game against when he was playing against Alabama and Milroe, he was making reads, and you would expect him to go here, but no, he was reading Jalen Milroe's eyes and his head and watching him. I think he's, now as of today, I think that was a great pick for him. He's a day one starter. He's going to replace Jermaine Pratt once we finally kick his ass out of the locker room.
I mean, are we really still trying to hold on to the fact that we might get a 7th round pick next year?
Man, seriously,
what are we doing? Just cut his
I don't
ass.
care what we do with him. Cut him, trade him for a pack of gum. I don't care. Just let him go, because Knight's taking his spot. Knight's going to come in there and do what he did, and he's a little bit long in the tooth for being a college kid out, because he's a little bit old, but he's a man. He's got a wife. He's got kids. I don't remember what it was, but he's a man. He's out there. He's out there ready to eat.
He's got a boy and a girl.
Yeah, so he's got family.
His quote about why he played in a meaningless bowl game, that could get him hurt before he gets drafted, and he said, because I'm a father, and he said, my son and my daughter need to know that their father doesn't make an excuse not to do something. If you start something, you finish it. I love my kids too much. Just incredible comments. I love it.
And like I said, after all this time of, just be able to watch his film, and just, he doesn't have any off the field problems. It's just great. And he's a man. He's a man. He's going to go out there and ball out. I'm happy to have him.
All right, Justin, you share the same sentiments with our own Demetrius Knight Jr.
I kind of do. However, this is exactly why I wanted Jahad Campbell in the first round, because everything that we say about about Demetrius Knight with this pick, you're literally getting that exact same guy plus a little more athleticism with Jahad Campbell. I get it. He must have scared off people with a lot of shoulder injuries, but you saw the Eagles didn't care to take him trade up to get him in one spot at pick 31, just because talent is talent, man. The thing is, though, about linebacker, and I know a lot of people are looking at it as like, oh, you can get linebackers anywhere. Stop with that thinking, because the Bengals have tried to get linebackers for a long time, and they really haven't had a real true 3-4 down linebacker since Vontaze Burfict. And even then, Vontaze Burfict could not stay on the field, whether if it was health or him was always being suspended. And they finally got to a point where, okay, he's just not as good and productive anymore. And we've been looking for that ever since. I think you might be able to get a great portion of that with Demetrius Knight when it comes to remaking his linebacking core. I'm not looking for a direct replacement for Jermaine Pratt. I don't understand the comps to Jermaine Pratt for real, because I think Demetrius Knight is way faster. He has better closing speed. He's a guy that I look at as that this is a guy that can spy on the running quarterback guys like a Lamar Jackson, like a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, even Jalen Hurts to an extent, the Jayden Daniels of the world. Like, he is a guy that I feel confident in, that once he gets seasoned enough in his first year, even in his second year, he's going to be the equalizer to those guys. The Bengals defense, let's just keep it real, man. As much as I hate the Ravens right now, like I've hated the Ravens fans in all ways, the Bengals didn't have anybody that can stop Lamar, and that's with Trey Hendrickson on the field. Yeah, we can talk about 2021 where we blew him out 41-17. Dog, but for real, I still feel like that they didn't have that one key ingredient on defense like the Ravens do with Roquan Smith, who unlocked Patrick Queen and other people on that defense, which is why you need that value at linebacker. The Bengals just have not had that. I like Logan Wilson, but ain't nobody scared of Logan Wilson. And we already know Jermaine Pratt, he's just too slow. And so with that being said, you need speed. You need quickness. You need somebody that is smart, that can read and diagnose plays before that happens. That is Demetrius Knight. So I thought that at first when I saw them take this pick, and I'm seeing guys like you said, Tim, like Tate Ratliff is still on the board, who ended up going 28. Well, I'm sorry, back in the second round to the Lions. Xavier Watts didn't even go to the third round, because that's a lot of Bengals fans who they wanted. I slowly calmed myself down. It's like, this is why we don't pay attention to mock drafts. This is wish list thinking, because at the end of the day, you got to be able to go with the gut of your feelings, because the first pick of the second round went to Cleveland. And you know who they took? Carson Schwarzenegger. that was another guy that I felt confident in that would have been there. And I started understanding, like, dude, if we wait to the third round to try to get a linebacker, I don't know if we're going to get the volume production like we want out of that position. And we're going to be forcing the need. Whereas you get the guy like Demetrius Knight now, I get it. It may not be the popular choice, but it's a choice that will help you in the long run. And I know we're going to get into the fourth round later with Barrett Carter, but I think a guy like him and Demetrius Knight will probably be the two main ingredients to unlock Shamar Stewart and help bring the best out of him. So I really do like this pick. I've came around on it. I like him as an individual. All the character things that you guys have mentioned is phenomenal. This is what we've needed. We need an adult in the room, it seems like. And I want somebody to put some fear presence on opposing offenses too. And I think he has the potential to be that. But he got to get on the field and play to see what he can do.
Yeah. When you speak to the character and those issues, when you he sparkled in that, right? And we've talked about several different things, but one of my favorite things, this guy goes to the combine and did everything. And we see so many guys opting out of, 3-cone drill or bench press or what. Nope. This cat did all of it. So I really appreciate that. I like that. The other thing I really like about him, I said I wanted one guy at least in this draft that played with a little bit of violence. Got him. This kid will put a helmet on you in a hurry and enjoys it. So I'm pretty excited about this pick. I gotta be honest with you. It made me a little nervous. Because I'm looking at this and I'm going, oof, we need a guard real bad. Tate Ratledge was, like you said, Tim, was staring at us. We didn't get a guard. Round 3, Dylan Fairchild, the other guard from Georgia. What was your take on Dylan Fairchild in round 3 at pick 81, Tim?
Y'all might think I'm crazy, but I think he was the best pick out of all 6 rounds. I don't care what anybody says. I think he was the best pick of all 6 rounds. He's athletic. He used to be a wrestler. He played for Georgia, SEC football. Only allowed one? I think it was like 1 sack last year in like 600 and some snaps, whatever the hell it was, 500 and some snaps, whatever. Allowed 1 sack. He can play guard. He can play center. I think he was our best. And I might be spitballing here, but I think he was the best draft pick that we had out of all 6 rounds. I think he could possibly. No, you know what? I'm not even gonna say possibly. I think he is a day 1 starter for the Cincinnati Bengals at guard. I know he can. I think he's a left guard, if I remember correctly. That's what he really likes to play.
Well, that's where he was playing in college. Yeah.
Yeah. So left guard, he could take Volson's spot easy, I think. So I just think he's that piece, that guard piece. And everybody was like, we need a guard. We need a guard. Well, we got a guard who played in the SEC against other NFL caliber players as well, future NFL caliber players as well. I think that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But I think he was a great pick.
He didn't get to do a lot of the stuff at the combine, but based upon his numbers from pro days and other things, I mean, he was estimated as one of the most highly athletic guards available.
Yep.
Like he was 96 rating or something like that off the top of my head. I don't remember. But he was in the mid 90s, which is great for guard. I was a little concerned about the left guard thing. We have a right guard to fill. How are we going to do that? Are we going to move Volson over? Are we going to move somebody else over? Are we going to see Smith get a chance? Are we going to see some? I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we drafted 2 guys that played on the left side of the line. I wish one of them would have played right. Justin, what was your take on Mr. Dylan Fairchild?
I have to agree with him. I don't know if he's the best pick, but he was my favorite out of everybody in this class. The Bengals draft class. I finally feel like that the term glass eater represents really well with this guy.
Oh, I like that.
When you hear him speak, when you hear him talk about his passions, I have not felt that from a lineman since probably Kevin Zeitler or Andrew Whitworth. We've all been talking like ad nauseum that, hey, the Bengals can probably go sign Kevin Zeitler, bring him back, and reunite him with Cincy. I was not interested in doing that. I think that the Bengals need to stop doing stuff. I think Bengals fans need to get out of that mind of doing stuff like that and really put the pressure on the front office to identify the next version of that. And I think you may have it with Dylan Fairchild. He's a guy that I feel like that has a tenacity to his game as a blocker. I don't know, like I said, as far as like his production capabilities, as far as like if he'll ultimately end up being one of the best in the league. But from all of the things that I've hearing, he has the upside of guys like a Wyatt Teller. That's pretty damn impressive to me, considering what Wyatt Teller came in Cleveland. And I think that he's going on his way of still being a Pro Bowl guard in Cleveland still. Even amidst all the changes and stuff, I think Dylan Fairchild has that potential. And he's paired up with the offensive line coach that can teach him the strike system that he's familiar with. So I do like that. Now, while fans were more so on the Tate Ratledge train in the second round, I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of wasn't, because I didn't want to reach for the position if it wasn't naturally comfortably there. But this one felt right for some reason. I didn't care that Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State, who I liked at safety if Xavier Watts was not there, I didn't care that he literally went a pick after Dylan Fairchild. He ended up going to the Titans for what I'm seeing here. I didn't care now. I mean, I did care that Xavier Watts got traded up for by the Atlanta Falcons. Boy, Atlanta's defense, talk about a remade secondary and a remade pass rush. I'm intrigued on seeing how they're going to pan out with those picks. But getting a guy like Dylan Fairchild made me feel so much better about this class, because up to this point, I have not been speaking very highly on the Bengals draft class thus far. And that was in the immediate reaction of these picks. But I think that for Dylan Fairchild, he was the inflection point that made me shift my feelings a little bit better. Like, this was never going to be about trying to capture sexy. This was never about trying to capture anybody's favorite names. But you just want a guy that's going to be a grown man, come in there and mean business. And I think you got that. And when you pair that up with the previous pick in Demetrius Knight, you're setting standards now. These are two guys coming in my opinion, that's going to set a new standard for this Bengals team moving forward on those position groups. So I'm with you all. I feel like that this is a A+ pick in my opinion, although the overall grade itself may not look the same that much based off of scores, RAS scores, PFF scores, whatever. But for me personally, I feel very good about him being a day one starter because I think that it's literally his job to win instead of his job to lose.
I did 3 mock drafts this year for podcasts. And 2 of the 3, I took Dylan Fairchild. So I was pretty high on it too. Now, I think the devil's advocate here with the people wanting Tate Ratledge is I think they were looking at a plug and play right guard. So I get that. It'll be real interesting to me to see, once spring practice, OTAs, all those things start, does he start getting reps on the right side? Are they going to start trying to, because I think he's more than capable of playing over there. Another high character guy, like you said, Justin, passion, I think is probably the word that came to mind first and foremost after hearing him speak. Looking forward to him. I think he was also a great pick. We are going to break halfway into this draft now. We'll try and speed up the last 3 picks a little bit, but we definitely wanted to get into those first 3. Those were pretty important that we have 2 impact players in my mind out of those 3. So very important we go over those. We appreciate you. If you've not yet, please hit like, subscribe, share, rate, review, and we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. And once again, you are back with Runnin Thru the Jungle with your host, Brandon Herriott, Tim Lyons, and Justin Lacey. We have went through the first 3 draft picks by the Cincinnati Bengals. We have left off at round 4. And Justin, I'm gonna get a little bit different order here. We're gonna go the other opposite way here. We're gonna let you start. Round 4, Barrett Carter, linebacker, Clemson. Double dip linebacker. I thought we were going to double dip guard, double dip linebacker first. What'd you think about this pick, Justin?
Yeah, this is actually another one of my favorite picks. And quite frankly, it was very reminiscent of 2020 when the Bengals drafted 3 linebackers. You know, we ended up getting Logan Wilson at the top of the 3rd round. And then people don't remember, but like this very next round in round 4, we ended up getting Akeem Davis-Gaither. And then later on, we ended up getting Marcus Bailey in the 7th round. It was very reminiscent with this time around, but I'm not comparing him directly towards Akeem Davis-Gaither. In fact, I think that he's a little bit different. And Demetrius Knight is a little bit different than Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, in my opinion, too. Both of these guys, I hinted to it earlier before the break when we were talking about Demetrius Knight. I think these 2 guys, if you pair them up correctly, get them on the field at the same time correctly, don't just put 2 linebackers on the board and then just put 5 base down and do the bear front. If you get all 3 linebackers on the board and space them out evenly and nicely, I think that this will be the true key nucleus that will unlock Shamar Stewart and bring the very best out of him. But they also got to pan out correctly. Now, his rushing ability is somewhat a little bit, is good. He's fast. He's athletic. His coverage ability, from what I'm hearing, is not all that great. But quite frankly, I don't care. I think he's good enough in coverage, if you ask me personally. I've seen him do one-handed interceptions. I like his energy. I like his enthusiasm. He's a guy that will talk trash after hitting a tight end. If you ask him to cover a tight end, I think he won't hesitate, which is good. Just because we were so hell-bent on trying to get someone like Nick Emenwari, who's like a Kyle Hamilton clone, because Kyle Hamilton and Nick Emenwari have that like eraser kind of vibe where they can take athletic tight ends away. Well, I think Barrett Carter could be that if he pans out correctly. He can be the eraser for certain blocking tight ends that blocking tight ends got to account for. Again, you got to pair him out correctly. He can cover out in the flat if you're trying to do those screen passes. We know Lamar Jackson likes to do those screen dump-off passes like Keaton Mitchell. We all talk about Derrick Henry. We also talk about Jalen Warren for the Steelers, but Jerome Ford for the Browns. He's a guy that can sniff that stuff out and knock that out real quick. And then it'll be in time to see if his production measure up to what we think he can be. But for now, I think this is a solid pick. I think that if you pair him up with Demetrius Knight, I really like his athleticism. He was one of the very few linebackers left in the draft at this position that if you didn't take Demetrius Knight in round 2, your only hope would have been a guy like Barrett Carter or the guy that the Ravens took. But I like Barrett Carter more than him.
Great name, Barrett Carter. Sounds like a football player. Tim, what'd you think of this pick? And number 119 overall.
I'm going to agree with Mary Edwards here. This one confused me. That's the same thought I had during the draft. It confused me. Why did we double dip in linebacker? But like I said before, give me a little time to look at everything. He played for Clemson. He's not a bad ball player. He can cover the field. He can play man to man, and he can also play zone. He's pretty good at reading the quarterback's eyes and which directions that the quarterback's going to be going. But is he a day one NFL starter? No, I think he's going to take some work. I think he's going to need a little bit. Welcome to the NFL. Welcome to the NFL defense. But I think it's a solid pick though for the Cincinnati Bengals as of today. He could possibly, he's going to fill in that Gaither role because just like Justin said, we'd taken Logan Wilson and Gaither and another linebacker, which I can't remember who the hell it was in 2020. But I think he's going to take that Gaither role. But he also could end up being a future, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt role. Knight and Barrett could end up being those future pieces, later on down the road of taking their spots as well. I'm not going to be too long-winded about it. Clemson linebacker, welcome to the Cincinnati Bengals. I hope he kicks some ass.
Yeah, has some great tape, right? Really, really good tackler, good player. Ran a 4.63. And when you watch him on a football field, that surprised me. I thought he was going to run in the 4.5s based upon what I saw his speed playing at, but I was not quite done with my thought here before Quad took the spotlight off of me. This is a guy who will rotate in for packages on maybe running downs and stuff like that, but will also be instant impact. Gaither is a gap in special teams just as much or more than he was on the football field. And I totally agree with Quad Father. This is going to be a very good special teams player immediately. And I think he will get some spot play here and there. And he's a good depth piece, and he's got good linebackers to learn from too. I think Wilson, Wilson is a really good linebacker, but he's a great communicator and runs that defense well.
I think one of the things that we got to remember too about this Barrett Carter selection is that we can't put all the pressure on Demetrius Knight to get it right away. You need somebody to come in here with him so that way they can both gain that responsibility. Like Al Golden once, he invested in this group. But I've always been frustrated with Bengals teams in the past, like during the Marvin Lewis era, that they never invested in the linebacking group, like the position itself. They always filled in guys, stopgap guys like AJ Hawk, Preston Brown, Kevin Minter. You remember those names, those sorry-ass names. Like, I don't want that no more. I want you to reinvest in the position when it's time for it. And I think this is one of Al Golden's calling cards, where it's that I at least need to make sure that my linebacking core is straight. It may be confusing, and I get Mary Edwards, I get Tim's, position and stance on that. But it's one of those where it's like, if you decided to go to the route of Demetrius Knight, don't let it be the only thing that you do. Double dip at it. Let's go ahead and get it. You know what I mean? So, again, I think his athleticism will pair really well. But at the end of the day, I'm not looking for impact day one, although it would be fantastic. But make impact on special teams, just like y'all said.
I was surprised that this pick wasn't a defensive tackle. All that said, if Al Golden thinks that he needs to have more depth and more linebacker help than defensive tackle help, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna let him build his team. You know what I mean? You really have to make mistakes for me to start riding your tail about it. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, man. They hired him to do a job. Let him do his job. If he doesn't do it right, then I'll be there. Justin, what'd you think about round 5 tackle Jalen Rivers out of Miami Hurricanes? Also played guard.
Yeah,
he played left tackle more his last year there.
I should have put like guard tackle flexibility. It's cool. Depth piece.
You know what he's going to play for us?
Yeah. I mean, I like the depth piece and whatnot that you can get with the interior, because you need more bodies to be able to protect Joe Burrow if injuries happen and whatnot. You can't be relying on guys like Jackson Kirkland and stuff like that. You got to be able to get guys, fresh, somebody that can be new and invigorating with this position group. So I don't have a problem with it. However, at this point, I would have loved if they would have took a chance on defensive tackle if the depth was there. They had opportunities. The guy that the Steelers got, Y.A. Black out of Iowa, that would have been a guy. He kept being characterized as a throwback defensive tackle, whereas he's a plugger. He's a plugger, a guy that can really, cut his chops with stopping the run. Maybe not so much pass rush upside. That's fine, but he's a big guy. He's going to come after the running back. He's going to plug the middle, do the best he can with that. Maybe this is a sneaky chess move to answer to that, because you need big guys at the guard position that can get vicious and get your hands and vice grips and then be able to move those kind of dudes. But at the end of the day, I don't see nothing more than like another version of Deontay Smith when we had him back in 2021. Over the last few years, he was inactive on game days. I would have hoped that he would have turned and panned out into something, but he never did. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and think like that he's going to be this all-world guard. If he does, man, what a hell of a surprise. And I never saw that coming, but that's probably unlikely. So it's just, as long as he makes the team, as long as he gets involved on some action, to where he can get some snaps and show some upside, hey, it's a good selection. Everybody can't be starters.
All right, Tim, what did you think about the pick here, Jalen Rivers from Miami?
It's just another, just like Justin said, he's a backup piece. He's somebody that's going to be able to come in there eventually if he has to, and fill in those roles. You know, as a Bengals fan, I guess my biggest worry is we don't have a very good track record drafting linemen. We really don't. But even though I hyped up Fairchild really well, but round 5, he's gonna come in. One thing I do like about him is that he can play guard and he can play tackle. So you got those. You got two pieces. We literally drafted 2 players who can play 2 different positions. Like I said, Fairchild guard and center. Rivers can play tackle and guard. So the utility pieces, but I really like, maybe down the road, he comes in and fills in some spots. Maybe he proves us all wrong, just like Justin said. And he actually is comes out here and just balls out and he's a great damn tackle, great guard, whatever it is. But it was another fill-in spot to help protect Joe Burrow, possibly. We'll just say possibly. And it's 5th rounder, good value. It was a good pick.
You know what I like about him, this is also something I like about Dylan Fairchild. Both of them are very close as far as physical attributes. I think Dylan's 6'5", Jalen's 6'6". They're both about 320. And, Jalen Rivers ran a 5'2" and change 40-yard dash at 320 pounds. We haven't had that kind of athleticism where I think if you get in a guard position where guards can actually pull correctly, our guards pulling is like the last 2 years when it happens, I go, oh, isn't that cute? Like, what are we doing? It's just terrible. So could this be more trap blocks and more pulling guard situations if we start getting some more athletic guys and we get a new a new offensive line coach, and he has a athletic MMA fighting background, yada, yada. So is this kind of where we're going to see some of these things go? Maybe the tackles are big bookends because we are going to build a pocket for the quarterback. We're still going to throw the ball 65% of the time. But do we get a little more athletic in guard? It kind of looks that way to me. All right. Last but not least, 6th round, pick 193. We take running back out of Texas Tech, Taj Brooks. Justin, what do you think about Taj Brooks?
I really haven't got a chance to study much of his game. I know a lot of people have, and I think that it's nice to get a weapon because the running back class in this draft was pretty deep, sort of in the back end. Guy like Dylan Sampson, who the Browns ended up targeting, Damian Martinez. I was looking at guys like that. Obviously, the dream was, Travion Henderson or one of the Ohio State guys. But unfortunately, the league also recognized that those guys was pretty good too, and those guys ended up going early in the draft. And if the Bengals would have taken a running back in round 2, I wouldn't have felt good about that when they had more pressing needs they needed to address. Maybe it's a good value add right here with Taj Brooks. I do recall him when he went up against my UC Bearcats that he just put on a haul. He just ran all over their asses. But that's college. This is the pros. He is somewhat of a bell cow back. He's a guy that's a grinder, can earn the tough yards. I don't think he has the long breaking speed that, like a guy like Chase Brown has, but he's a guy that can complement Chase Brown.
4.5 40 guy.
Yeah, he's not like a 4.3 or,
No.
So with that being said, I like it. I would hope that he will get more snaps than guys like, who do we have on the roster behind Chase Brown? Zach Moss. I would hope he would get more snaps than those 2 guys because I'm sorry. I'm just not sold on P. Ryan or Zach Moss moving forward. So I'm glad that they decided to go this direction, but it's not a pick to where I would say you're done investing in the running back position. None of these picks are, to be honest. But with Taj Brooks, I'm still looking to add to the room, whether that's be a Nick Chubb in free agency, whatever he has left, or you can reinvest in the position next year because you got to think long term regarding Chase Brown too. But Taj Brooks is a nice bridge pick to pair along with the production of Chase Brown if it pans out.
I think we're probably, in my mind, I think we're done with running back room this year.
Yeah, for sure.
But we do have two guys falling off next year, and I think having this 1-2 with Chase Brown and Taj Brooks puts you in a good position to not have to add too early in the draft next year, but get somebody in that third, fourth, fifth round that you think is going to be a good contributor. And you got to start thinking about special teams and backup and depth and all those kind of things. Running backs get hurt in this league. Tim, what do you think about Taj Brooks?
What does my hat say?
Run the damn ball.
Damn ball. As we know, I love to run the damn ball. I was actually confused again by why did we draft a running back in the 6th? But as going back, looking at his tape, Texas Tech Red Raider, I think he ran 1,500 yards last season, had 15, 16, 17 touchdowns, whatever it was. He's 5'9", 217 pounds, I think. 215.
Yeah, he plays like 220, 222.
Yeah, something like
he
that.
Was 217 for the combine.
Yeah, and then he was first team Big 12. I know it's Big 12, but still. You know who he reminds me of?
No.
You remember a small bowling ball that used to run from – he played for the 49ers. He played for the Colts. He played for the Dolphins. He played for a lot of damn teams. I don't know if you guys know who I'm talking about.
It's Frank Gore.
Frank Gore. That's who he reminds me of because he's just a bowling ball, slow center of gravity, and can hand him the ball. I think he's a good pair if the Bengals would decide to run the ball 30 times in a game, which we know will never happen. I think the most we've had was 20, 25 because we were winning and they just started handing Chase Brown the ball to run the clock out. But I think it's a good combination between Chase Brown and him. I think it's just a 1-2 punch, lightning, thunder. And the one thing I've always said is that we needed was that thunder. We have Chase Brown. Chase Brown is a good running back, but we can't let him play every single down. He's going to need to come out. I know we have Samaje Perine and we have Zach Moss. Yeah, I don't really care about those two. But I believe Taj Brooks is a great addition to the team. Given his opportunity, we'll see what happens. We'll see how they use him, and run the damn ball.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those thick thighs between the tackles kind of runners. He's not going to break 70, 80-yard touchdowns, but a good change of pace, a good spelling Chase Brown for a series. I think he has the mentality, watching him, to be a good blocker in the NFL. So if he needs to pick up the blitz or anything like that, I think that's something that, especially, you can say whatever you want about Perine not wanting back. Perine's pretty good at picking up that block.
Yeah, he is.
So I think him learning from Perine on what to read and tells and stuff like that, I think this is a solid pickup for us. And as far as I was concerned with this draft choice, I think in all 3 mock drafts I did, I took a 6th round running back. No, I did not. I took Travion Henderson in one of the drafts earlier, but I took a running back at 6 in the other 2.
Yeah, and I think in our mock we took a running back in the 6th. I think that's what we did in ours. But it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of didn't make sense to me. But then it does make sense after the way the Cincinnati Bengals draft went. I know the media didn't give us as a whole a good score, but it makes sense to me now. After reviewing all the players and watching tape and looking at these guys. And it's not just what they did on the field. It's also what they do off the field. They're not getting into trouble. They're not having all this drama and stuff going on.
We tried that last year. It didn't work out.
Yeah. it didn't work out for us, you know. So
Well, at least it hasn't yet.
and I believe, you know, even though I know a lot of us were like, what the hell are the Bengals doing when we're drafting? I know Brandon was 14 shots deep by the first round.
Less than 14. It was less than 14.
12.
It was blasphemy.
Okay, 12. Okay. However many shots he was in, you know, and I know I was just like, what the hell are we doing here? But it all, like I said, it's all making sense now. I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals had their draft board, and it was, this is what we're going to pick, regardless of X, Y, and Z. These are the guys that they liked, their character, their off the field guys, their work ethic. You know, I know we want these guys that are like, you know, 14, 15, 20 sacks, you know, in their last college game or college year, but we got to look at productivity, or not just that productivity, but their personality and how hard they work. So, you know, they're in the NFL for a reason. I know I'm not in the NFL. I can never be in the NFL, you know, and I give them kudos. Like I said, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm looking forward to the 2025 seasons going on. I might be taking some shots of tequila during that 2025 season, but I'm optimistic.
What would you give them if you had to score this?
You know, as a homer, as a biased guy,
Let's do it.
I'll give him a B-.
All right.
As a not Cincinnati Bengals fan, I give him a C-.
All right, Justin. What was your overall view of this, and what was your draft?
I think that this draft just paints me a picture that the Bengals just still didn't do enough in this offseason to make me feel good about the direction of how 2025 is going to go. They had many of opportunities, regardless of what Mike Potts must have said on several shows. They had plenty of opportunities to move back and collect more picks to be able to fill a little bit more holes and stuff. You could have done it. You just didn't do it. You stood pat every single round.
And just adding one draft pick.
Just adding one draft pick would have done you a little bit more justice. Don't get me wrong. You know, we haven't mentioned them today, but even the undrafted free agents that the Bengals acquired, I kind of like some of those guys. But at the end of the day, man, I feel like that it just still left me feeling like we still didn't do enough. Free agency, it just felt like it just wasn't enough. Yes, I'm happy to get Jamar and T signed. You know, we'll see what happens with Trey Henderson about him getting extended. There's some buzz. There's some good buzz out there, but who knows now at this point. The draft came and went. I was excited about a lot of the names and stuff, and I was hoping that the Bengals was going to at least entertain drafting. But it just still left me wondering overall in its totality that this just doesn't feel like that they did everything that I feel like that they thought they could do. It just felt like that they went super, super conservative. And that's not going to win you Super Bowls. I'm not saying you got to trade up all the time. They only had 6 picks. But you got to make it right. You got to make it work with those picks that you have. Now, we like the names individually. We was growing to understand the individual names on the draft sheets that we ended up taking. But, man, I just feel like that they didn't maximize their opportunities as a whole with this draft. My opinion, I'm going to stick with the C- grade. That's as a Bengals fan, and that's as an overall, you know, football watcher and evaluator. I feel like that the whole entire AFC North, in my opinion, drafted well, but somehow I feel like that the Bengals did not get better than everybody else. And I know that the Steelers still got problems at quarterback right now, and now we haven't even talked about it, but they just traded away George Pickens. But even regardless, though, regarding their quarterback situation, I thought Pittsburgh had a great draft themselves. Baltimore with 2 major steals in the first couple of rounds, and the first 3 rounds, even with Emory Jones Jr. The Browns, you know, there's going to be a lot of flack for them taking that. They could have had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel like the Browns had a pretty good draft. They didn't chase after the name brand and recognition they easily could have with the Travis Hunter pick at number 2, but they decided to trade back, collected Mason Graham, pair him on the line with Myles Garrett. You get Carson Schlesinger, and you end up, well, I don't get that they drafted 2 quarterbacks, whatever, but I thought that everybody in the AFC North had a slightly good draft, and I think that the Bengals, while it was okay, while I'm understanding it was okay, it was solid, it just doesn't feel like that I'm coming away with this feeling great that they're going to be like Super Bowl champions or Super Bowl winners, like contenders, I should say. It just felt like that, man, if these picks don't hit, Zach Taylor's ass is out the door. That's what I come away feeling like.
Justin, I'll reiterate this. If I'm going to give them a C+, I will reiterate your take. If they could have traded down and gotten a late third, early fourth round on top of trading down in the first round, I think they still get their guy in the first round.
Yep.
And I think you're looking at could have added a Deontay Walker, defensive tackle from Kentucky, who, if you look at his tape 2 years ago, up the field, disruptor, pass rusher, plays with physicality, speed, and size. This year he had hurt his back early in the year, and he played a little bit taller, and it hurt his numbers a little bit. I think he would have probably been an end of the second round pick if he would have came out the year before. But this year he came out and went in the fourth round. If we add him, I think I go right to a B+, A-.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a great draft.
And then the same thing can be said about Ty Hamilton from Ohio State, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, again, there was a great run on defensive tackles when they got to the mid rounds. You know, the high-end portion of it, like the Kenneth Grants and the Walter Nolans, we already knew those guys was coming off the board. And I was surprised Kenneth Grant was the next guy off the board after Mason Graham. But at the end of the day, you know, you had opportunities, and the Bengals just didn't maximize their window enough for it. So at the end of the day, like I said, a solid C. You know, just like what Marriott was said in the comments, C to C- for me personally. I just need to see them prove it, because I keep finding myself leaning on, I hope this guy can do that. I hope.
Yeah.
But we always say hope is not a strategy. Everybody says that. And I feel like that we're always leaning on that. We hope that they can develop into something. And that's just not good enough for me.
I give it like I said, I think it's a C draft, but I give it a C+ because we did get more physicality.
Sure.
We got it at the running back position. We got a linebacker. We got a defensive line. Like, I feel like, and honestly, I mean, if you want to go, you want to put the thumb on it, it's probably somebody we took a little bit out of spite or out of slot order or value pick at Demetrius Knight.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And that's my guy. I think that even in him and Dylan Fairchild, physical players. Pick 2 and 3. I keep hearkening to, if you're going to play in the AFC North, you have to have a little bit of violence. And I think they added that. And in a good way, not in a Vontaze Burfict uncontrollable way.
Right.
These are men.
Yeah. And that's the thing about Vontaze Burfict. Like, look, man, I know a lot of Bengals fans will reminisce the Vontaze Burfict days, but man, let's tell the truth, bro. Vontaze Burfict, it got so annoying seeing all those penalties and fines and suspensions come his way to the point where it's like, dude, we're better off without you. You know, I get it. Fans will go like crazy over Vontaze Burfict and stuff, but dog, I'd rather have had Ryan Shazier over Vontaze Burfict, if you ask me.
Oh, no doubt.
Dude, when he got in an altercation at practice with Gio, I was done.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the nicest guy in the NFL at the time, and you got an altercation with him at practice. Get out of here. I was done. All right. That's going to wrap up our draft coverage next week. As we mentioned, we are going to be talking about the schedule release, and hopefully we'll be talking about some of the chess pieces the Bengals are moving around, and will we by then sign or know more about Trey Hendrickson's future with the Cincinnati Bengals? Get into those and some chess pieces that we could possibly see moving around. A lot of schedule, though. I'm very interested in the schedule.
Yeah.
I got to get to a game this year. I didn't get to one last year.
Bro, I think that this schedule release, it's going to take up the whole episode. I'm not going to lie, bro, because we're going to be talking about all kind of games, primetime games. We're going to evaluate and eat it all up. But yeah, I'm excited for my final thoughts, because I know you probably was about to pass around the horn, but my final thoughts are simple, man. I'm not expecting the Bengals to do any sort of backdoor moves right now to, to sell the fan base on something. There's nothing that they can do other than extend Trey Hendrickson to make me feel like, oh my gosh, they're serious. You just get the schedule out and let me just have fun with that.
You got anything you want to add, Tim?
I'm just being optimistic and keeping my head up, and we'll see what happens. It's gonna take time. It's we got these new guys in here. Let's see what happens. I don't want to go into the whole Trey Hendrickson talk because I'm done talking about that. But let's hope it gets done sometime soon. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. That's it. Hooday.
Hey, and here's to our first American Pope. Congratulations. We'll talk to you later.